Good morning, it's Gemma. I apologise I'm not out in the garden, that it's not a better view, and for the noise of the fan. I just wanted to give an update on the situation that I'm going through with my partner, who is in a temporary placement in a care home with dementia. Um, I'm at home all by myself. I don't have family and I don't have any friends around here. I've never lived in one place long enough to really form friendships wherever I've gone, and um, the past 15 years I've been very into my music and haven't, I'm not particularly sociable anyway. um, um, yeah, I'm so hot, I just can't think basically. We're day 5, I think, of the heat wave in London. We're right in the red zone, red alert zone, um, and I'm really scared now. I mean, I've always worried about climate change, which is why I'm trying to study green building, because I want to make a difference to the planet for the better for the rest of my life. Um, um, yeah, but it's just so humid on top of the heat. So I'm sat here in front of a fan that's on full blast and I'm still dripping with sweat. And then to add to it all, I got bitten by one of these. I think I saw it yesterday. It's a little black insect. It's not a tick, but it pierces the skin and makes me bleed, and then my whole arm swells up, and I feel rotten the next day, which is what I feel today. Um, yeah, and I'm just making these videos because I want to document this horrific journey that I've been on as a unpaid primary carer, and it has been absolutely horrific, and put a couple of playlists together and then maybe send it out to whoever, but not that anyone's going to care, of course, but it kind of helps me anyway. Yeah, on Monday had another pointless talk with Jan's, my partner's social worker, because it's been over a week since she went into the care home. Nobody had let me know that she'd been moved, and it was only because of she'd been moved out of the hospital. Social services hadn't let me know, even though I'm the only one that just cared for her, and they haven't let me see her. Something to do with safeguarding and the fact that she's not got any next of kin, I think, but they won't let me know. So naturally, I'm scared that I'm never going to see her again. They're going to move her on again, and I'm not going to know where she is. So I was on the phone to the social worker asking for an update, and she was just, her attitude just stank, and said, "Hello, it's Gemma," and it was like, oh, the whole attitude was, "Oh, not you again," straight away. I said, "I want to know what's happening, when can I see my partner? How is she?" And she said, oh no, I can't tell you anything. You're going to have to speak to safeguarding and I'll get them to email you. And I said, well, how are you going to do that? You haven't even taken down my email address, so you just lied to my face. I mean, she couldn't take my phone number last week and she couldn't take my email address down this week. You know, I mean, what the fuck are you doing? If you can't even take down somebody's contact details. I mean, if she said, oh, I have a problem with, I don't know, a problem with that thing, I'd understand, but she never said anything like that. And she wouldn't tell me anything, and I got, obviously, it's human to get angry and frustrated and upset, but I was still being reasonable, and she just put the phone down on me. You know, it's just a really convenient another little convenient way they evade accountability, these people in the system now. It's like if you shout, you have free rein to put the phone down on people. Well, you've broken the people in the system with your shitty behaviour and incompetence, and then you wonder why people raise their voices. Anyway, I was so I don't know, beside myself that I actually reached out to Redbridge Carers again and got to speak to somebody at work recommended to me months ago, but I had a caseworker with this organisation at the time, so but this lady's actually been really good. She's listened to me and given me some pointers of where to get legal advice, because I've been left with nothing. I'm in the house that Jan owns, but because of having to care, I've just been reduced to poverty. And I've been trying to move out for a couple of years now, but every time something's come up, either the housing association fuck up or I just can't leave her, you know, because it's been a toxic relationship, but part of me still cares, which is hard for people to understand, I know, and it's hard for me to get my head around, but and through this lady at Redbridge Carers, I had a long conversation with somebody at Welfare Benefits, because I'm not claiming any benefits. My benefits were, the one benefit I was on, Universal Credit, that was taken away overnight because I'm studying a master's degree and nobody in 7 months told me that if I did that I would be ineligible to claim. So I'm being punished basically for trying to better myself, give myself a future in impossible circumstances. So I've got a whole load of numbers to call and everything, and the problem with that is that I'm just so exhausted and burnt out and stuff that it's just hard to do any of this stuff without assistance naturally. I mean, I've had to do everything by myself throughout this, you know, learn so much just to get just to, you know, teach myself so many things without any assistance. So yeah, so that's the positive news. And also this lady at Rebbage Carers, she advocated for me and called this awful social worker um, to find out what was going on again. And apparently now I can visit Jan at the care home, but I just don't believe anything they say. I'm sort of anticipating if I rock up there that they're going to turn me away. Be just the kick in the teeth that um, I've come to expect because of the lack of continuity and everything else. But I can't go anywhere at the moment because of the heat, but I'm hoping next week I can get there. Um, yeah, and then yesterday, I made a formal complaint against Jan's previous social worker, who basically didn't listen to me back in March when I said that the care package in place wasn't enough, and as a result she ended up in the state she ended up in. Hold them entirely to blame, because I did try and warn them that Jan wasn't, she was getting worse, and that I was ill-equipped, being completely alone and ill myself with OCD and PTSD to care sufficiently for her, and the care package was just hopeless. You know, they just gave the medication. They were supposed to, they washed her but wouldn't dress her, even though she was incapable of dressing herself anymore. So I'd come home after crying my eyes out everywhere I went because I was so worried about leaving her, to her being dressed like a clown with no life thing around her neck, you know, which again is ridiculous because she forgets it's round her neck. It's this button thing that she can press if she feels ill, but she forgets it's round her neck, but the carers never even put it back on her. So anyway, this arsehole he just shut me down, he just cut me off. I couldn't get a complete sentence out, and then as soon as I opened my mouth and I was sticking up for both of us, you know, I was called aggressive. And it turned out that he's the safeguarding lead, amazingly. And I had a safeguarding thing put in for me from London Ambulance because they thought I needed to be in hospital because of my heart. I thought I was having a heart attack. So he was dealing with that. And again, same attitude. You know, I had to demand that he listen to me, and then he was asked some really inappropriate, irrelevant questions about my history of being sexually abused as a child and whether I'd been sectioned, which I'm absolutely terrified of. I mean, I never have been. Then I said to him, I can't talk to you about this stuff, you know, because it's men that have traumatised me. But never, you know, and then he said, well, I'll get you a female social worker, but that never happened, and he wanted to meet me at the house while Jan was in hospital, and I'd sort of geared myself up for it because I'm terrified of just being alone with the man in the house. And he never turned up. He just didn't turn up. No phone call or anything. Just didn't bother turning up. And I called him and said, well, why didn't you have the human decency to let me know that you weren't coming? And he said, you know, couldn't get the words out. No apology. Just, oh, well, you can make another appointment. So I made a formal complaint against him. And then another guy, another social worker, they got to call me in his place, a man, even though I was told that a female would deal with me, and he was equally as misogynistic and blame shifting and just awful, absolutely awful. And I found myself justifying what I'd been through. And I don't have to justify myself to anybody. And because I'm in such a depleted state, I'm not myself, you know. And they just make mincemeat out of me, these people. So anyway, as part of these complaints, it was handed over to the manager of the social workers, who, you know, I actually found her that she listened to me and got on well with her. Showed me a bit of empathy and compassion, or just let me talk and listen. That's all people need sometimes, is a listening ear, you know, not advice, not being told what to do, just somebody that listens. But anyway, she said, oh, I've got this lovely social worker, female social worker. She said, I just want to do right by this lady, meaning me. Just want to do right by you. I said, it's a bit late now. And she said, I've got this lovely social worker. She's trained in listening and compassion. And she's very good. And I've assigned her to you. And I said, well, I've been promised a lot of things. And I take everything, all the promises that people have made, with a very large pinch of salt until something actually materialises. So anyway, yesterday I got a call from this new social worker. She made her out to sound like an absolute godsend, you know. And she said, first thing, she said, hello, my darling, how are you? I said, who's this? It's like somebody, like a long lost relative. Hi, my darling, how are you? I said, well, I'm pretty shit, actually. Who are you? Yeah, let her blather on. And I hate being called darling and love. That's partly why I left the theatre, because you just get sick of all that fake. I don't know, it's so patronising, and I get it's a way of people breaking the ice and trying to be friendly and that, but I find it so off-putting. So that was the first thing. And then I started to tell her my story, which I've repeated so often, and it's just every time I tell it, it's re-traumatising. And she said, oh, you don't have to talk about it. I've read your notes and I've been filled in and everything. And then she started on with the toxic positivity, you know, implying that if I had more of a positive mindset, I'd be finding life easier. And I just made a comment that I was struggling with the heat, like everybody is, you know, just a comment. And she said, well, think yourself lucky, because I've got 2 93-year-olds I'm checking in on. You know, there's always somebody worse off than you are. Yeah, right, way to go to minimise my distress. So I said, you don't know who I am. You've never met me. You know, you're over familiar. And you're just, if you don't come out with that crap, you've just got no idea how the fears that I've had to face just to get Jan and I through some really difficult moments. And carrying on when I've been kicked in the teeth by people in the system, which I include you as being a part of. You lot have caused this. You've broken me. You lot, this system has broken me. And you have the gall to tell me that I haven't got a positive enough mindset. And she said, oh, well, I'll do the work, you know, I can do as much as I can for you, but you're going to have to pull your weight as well. I mean, she had a preconceived idea of the type of person I was before she even picked up the fucking phone. You know, that I'm some kind of layabout that doesn't help themselves. And I just said, I don't need this crap. So it's pointless you working with me. She said, oh, I'm sorry. But I'm afraid I didn't like her straight away, and the mistake I've made in life is giving people too many chances. I've given all of these people chances when they haven't deserved it, thinking that it's me, you know, it's me, and I'm not being fair. I give people a chance. But now I go with my gut, and my gut was saying that this is just more blame shifting, more sort of they just have this kind of, I don't know, it's just fake, sugary, oh, God, I don't know. But so that's another dead end. And they've originally gave me for the complaint, the outcome of the formal complaint, they gave me the 23rd of June for the result. But of course they've written to me and said, oh no, we've had to delay it until the 8th of July. So, yeah. So after that conversation, previous to that, I was just laying on the sofa, really just couldn't breathe, and like, people are really suffering in this heat, and it's affecting my heart, and with this bite, and I just made me so angry, the attitude. And I felt like saying to her, you try doing a master's degree when you're a full-time carer. I was self-employed, I've got a voluntary job. I'm ill myself, I'm going through the menopause. Isn't that enough? And I've got no support. And you just find yourself like justifying, and then they compare your pain to somebody else's pain is a lot greater, you know, or they've been through something 10 times worse. Just minimising, invalidating. And I said to this manager, I said, you know, whoever you assign to me has got to have some idea about the effect that prolonged trauma has on people. I mean, I've after 50 years of it, I mean, I've had a lot of joy and happiness and satisfaction in my life, but I've also had a lot of trauma, which is, I've tried to address it with therapists. I've had, when I lived in Brighton, I had a brilliant bunch of people around me, including a therapist, but since then I've had no luck with therapists, because again, they don't know what OCD is, or they're just more interested in talking about themselves and answering text messages to their children while I'm trying to access some really deep, troubling things. But she's given me this fucking woman, so yeah. But anyway, I was just so angry after that. I thought, come on, Gemma, I've got less than 2 weeks now to get this assignment done. It's not because I haven't worked on it. I've been working on it every day. But when you're grieving and everything, and all your energy is taken up with keeping your pets and yourself functioning, it's very difficult. But I just want to get this done for myself, because I know what I've sacrificed to do it. I've sacrificed an income, I've been punished for it, and then before you know it, you're back. I've been told I can apply for PIP, which I don't know what that is, but because of my mental health problems at the moment. But, again, it's having to prove that, to prove I'm not a liar, to prove, and they said, oh, you're on medication and that'll work in your favour. I said, no, I choose not to be. So just because I have my own methods of healing myself or finding peace, that doesn't fit into the pigeonhole, the right pigeonhole. You don't meet the categories, And of course, being gay and poor and everything else, everything, all that counts against me. Because some people matter more than others, don't they? And people on the margins, they're second-class human beings. But anyway, I was determined to kind of try and get some of my assignment done, and I did yesterday. Hey, bud. Alright, you've got food there. And if I don't submit this time, even though they said I could apply again for extenuating circumstances, that seems to have gone out the window. But they said I'd be off the course if I don't pass this module. So, yeah, the reason I'm not having to change career is because I lost my music because I had 2 frozen shoulders. So I've tried to retrain at the age of 50 in something completely different. And I've worked so hard. And I knew nothing about green building, apart from what I'd read in books and just my passion for the subject. And I've worked so hard with reading and everything else, and I don't want these arseholes to take that away from me. Because it's just a trap, this whole system. And then the other thing is that so I'm going to try and do some more of that today if I can. And the other thing is I have an idea of how I'd like to live in the future, but it's just having the guts to actually go for it in this state. I want to live in an intentional community or eco-village, or, as I said to the welfare benefits person, I've suffered so much trauma, I need to feel safe for the rest of my life, and I've even applied for care homes. I'm not old enough yet, unfortunately, to qualify for some of them, but I just don't want to end up in another awful situation. I'm too old, but I know the kind of life that I want to be leading. I want to be with like-minded people that care about the planet, live in a homestead or something, or converted bus or tiny home nearby to a like-minded community. I want to be on the outskirts, but to have people that I can be with when I need to be. And I've done all the research for that, and it's just having the guts really to think that I'm worth that, and that I can do it, and that they will. I've got something to offer, even though I've been reduced to nothing. But I know for a fact that a lot of people that make that life change into alternative communities and living and everything, they actually reach the point that I've reached in this capitalist bollocks, where they can't go on. And I'm not naive, it's unrealistic to think that you can escape this capitalist machine but you can live in ways that are for the benefit of the greater good and all life, all living creatures and the planet and stuff. So, yeah, it's just difficult with the animals. Um, I know there are places that do accept animals, so it's just so hard, and part of me thinks there is just no future for me, and I'm just living on borrowed time, and I'm struggling to stay alive really much of the time. But um, yeah, so that's the update for today. Okay, thanks for listening, and see you soon. You won't see my face, but you'll see, I don't know, more interesting views than this. Okay, bye.